General Accounting Office believes that there is somewhere between 300 and 600 billion of annual fraud, roughly 10% of government spending.
Now, the supposed justification for the property tax increases is that they're required to fund our public schools.
Literally strip mining the wealth and equity away from the American middle class.
This week has been absolutely bonkers when it comes to the housing market, as President Donald Trump has said many things, one being that he plans on eliminating institutional investors from purchasing single-family residences, something that I've been wanting for a long time, being that as prices go down and if we abolish property taxes, there will be accelerated involvement because their cap rates will shift. Now, on top of that, unfortunately, a lot of stuff, you guys, unfortunately, he's also talking about mortgage-backed security, QE, or rather financial weapons of mass destruction. So we're going to go over that. And we're also going to go over him also saying that he wants to abolish property taxes. Now, if he does that, I will stop everything I'm doing right now and I will do everything to help that man, because property taxes is the biggest, most important civil rights movement of our generation. And people are starting to finally understand that property taxes is the most regressive tax in our history. Remember, it used to be life, liberty, and the pursuit of property. This is about institutional investors. For a very long time, buying and owning a home was considered the pinnacle of the American dream. It was the reward for working hard and doing the right thing. But now, because of the record high inflation caused by corrupt politicians and people in Congress, that American dream is increasingly out of reach for far too many people, especially younger Americans. And I'm going to add senior citizens. That's right. Younger Americans and senior citizens are having the roughest time in the housing market. It is for that reason and much more that I am immediately taking steps to ban large institutional investors from buying more single-family homes. So it's important to understand he's talking about single-family homes. And I will be calling on Congress to codify it. People live in homes, not corporations. I will discuss this topic, including further housing and affordability proposals, and more on my speech in Davos in 2 weeks. Now I wanted to bring up the stats on how many homes institutional investors own, because I think it's important to understand the differences in data, because there's a lot of data shills that are pushing, oh, there's no problem with institutional investors, and they're pushing that without showing you guys the entire picture and essentially playing us like a bunch of fools. Now here's the first chart. They're basically saying that Blackstone owns 0.06%, and other institutional investors own about 0.5% of total housing market inventory stock. Well, that may be true. Here's the problem. The trajectory of their involvement when the cap rates shift. For example, if home prices start going down or they abolish property taxes, their cap rates could double to triple, which will send them flooding back into the housing market. And although overall they own a small portion of the total housing market, that doesn't mean that they're ruining and stealing the dreams of young Americans and really anyone that wants to get into the housing market. And you can see that clearly when we look at quarterly data. In certain quarters, these big institutional investors and iBuyers purchase up to 5% of total stock for that month. So if that trajectory continues, it's only a matter of time before they start owning double-digit percentages of the entire housing market. So the trajectory is important to understand, as is the cap rates changing. If the cap rates change, they come back in and they take our houses. That's how this has been working and has worked from the very beginning. So it's important to differentiate the weasels who are reporting this data and the people that are actually using the math and looking at the big picture to figure out what's going on. And so Mitch Vexler, let's start figuring out what's going on. And I want to get your first take here. I love it. I want institutional investors out of the housing market. I've said that. One of my concerns with the abolishing property taxes is these institutional investors spend billions, maybe trillions of leveraged up money to get back into the housing market. I've made that clear because the cap rates change. If the cap rates triple overnight, they're coming right back in the housing market. That's how this works. What is your opinion, though, Mitch? Because I know you're a master builder. You've done a lot of buildings, specifically a lot of hotels, but you've done residential. What do you think? Is this not fair, or do you think that institutional investors should be buying subdivisions of SFRs and taking those homes out of the housing stock?
No. We've said several months ago, as a matter of fact, that those who invested in the private equity weren't going to make any money. The reason they weren't going to make any money is because these subdivisions are being built, single family for rent SFRs on sub 6 caps. That's sub 6% rate of return. The private equity is doing nothing except taking the investor's money as a fee in the middle of saying, well, isn't this wonderful? Look at what we're doing for you. It was a failed concept from the word go. The truth still hasn't come out. If you have a 6% rate of return, and what's called risk-free rate of return is US Treasuries. If you want to believe that, that's fine. But if US Treasuries are 4.25%, 4.5%, for what purpose are you investing in something on a 6% yield other than maybe you're getting some depreciation and flow through from the private equity source itself? The point of the matter is, economically speaking, it's sheer stupidity. So I am not a believer in it. It has tampered with what would normally be the availability of housing in the marketplace for a variety of reasons, including the institutions wanting to fund it, causing lack of housing availability for those who are searching for it, because land is required in order to build the product. So there's a variety of reasons behind it. But the bottom line is that it is not for the benefit of society. Corporations have zero business buying in mass housing, be it 2 or 5% of the inventory of any given area. The answer is no, never. They did it, and now they're going to have to pay the price for doing it, because what they're beginning to find out is that the rental rates that they're trying to achieve aren't achievable.
All right, Mitch, now we're going to go into something much more difficult to talk about and much more concerning, which is the mortgage-backed security purchasing. But before I go into that, I want to listen to Kennedy talk about his thoughts on the Federal Reserve. And remember, you guys, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are the long arm of the Federal Reserve, or the tentacle of the Federal Reserve.
If the Fed is like a pump, its function, it operates on behalf of a few Wall Street banks. And its function is to act like a pump. It is literally strip mining the wealth and equity away from the American middle class, shifting it upward. Companies in this country and financial institutions, when I was a kid, they would go out, if you wanted to make an investment, they'd go out and look at all the factories. They'd go to Michigan, they'd go to Detroit, they'd go to other parts of our country, and they'd look at the factories and they'd say, what does the management team look like? What are the production figures? What are the financial figures? What is the bank book? What is the inventory? They'd look at that and then they'd make a financial bet. That doesn't happen today. The only thing they're focused on Wall Street is, what is the Fed going to do next? And our country's been financialized, and we've allowed all of the industry to leave our country, and it's now in China. We've outsourced it.
Now, again, you guys, this was yesterday. A lot coming out collectively about the housing market. Personally, I like to hear about the housing market. I do not like to hear about pumping up crypto. The last administration, and I'm saying this very carefully because I do not want to create division, and I believe that politics only creates division, and it is an illusion of options and choice. But the last administration ignored the housing market. I would agree. And instead was immersed with high crime, open borders, runaway inflation, the Afghanistan disaster, and a military that he left in chaos and confusion. Everything was broken, but I, as President of the United States, have already fixed it. Now I am giving special attention to the housing market because I choose not to sell Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac in my first term. A truly great decision. And against the advice of the experts, it is now worth many times that amount because of leverage and fraud. I added that last part. An absolute fortune because of leverage and fraud. And they're using our money to create that. Because remember, it's not public and has $200 billion in cash. Because of this, I'm instructing my representatives to buy $200 billion in mortgage bonds. This will drive mortgage rates down, monthly payments down, and make the cost of owning a home more affordable. It is one of the many steps in restoring affordability, something that the last administration absolutely destroyed. We're bringing back the American dream that was destroyed by the last administration, and they're saying, make it all great again. Now, obviously, the concern with this is history and the proof that CEOs just pocket the money, that the taxpayers get shafted. We don't need lower interest rates. We need lower prices. Why don't people understand that? They can't get interest rates lower, residential mortgage rates, with just the 10-year treasuries. So they need to create an additional method to artificially drive interest rates down. The way that they artificially drive interest rates down is they create quantitative easing and they purchase mortgage-backed securities from lenders so they can make a profit. You can't make a profit if you're giving someone an interest rate that you yourself get as a bank. So they get the profit in the back end of the mortgage sale through mortgage-backed securities. And you see the repeated history of mortgage-backed securities. In fact, the Fed already has $2 trillion in mortgage-backed securities. Why not sell these and give us this back? Why not sell that money and give that money back as a refund to the taxpayers? People know, Mitch, that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are the long arm of the Federal Reserve. People are starting to understand that the Federal Reserve's only job is to protect the banks at the cost of mom and pop and stripping away our equity and our rights. This is bad. We've talked about MBS purchasing are financial weapons of mass destruction. What do you think about this most recent announcement to artificially lower residential mortgage rates, but at the same time reward Wall Street bankers? Good idea, bad idea? What do you say, sir?
I understand the theory behind it, but as a policy is concerned, this is a mistake. So mortgage-backed securities with regard to housing are not worth the face value of the mortgage-backed securities. The value is predicated on the value of the housing that supports those mortgage-backed securities. Interest rates are set based on perceived risk. And in Japan, interestingly enough, the government bought the mortgage-backed securities. The government is the largest holder of stocks in the Japanese market. That's not capitalism. That's simulated capitalism. And just because the money exists to do something doesn't mean it's the right thing to do when it's taken into its totality of the mortgage-backed security inventory in the United States. I don't believe this is going to work at all. And I understand why they want to do it. But the reality is that in order to get to the true value, face value of the mortgage-backed securities, what its real value is, you must look at the underlying value of the housing. We have proven irrefutably that the value of the housing, as established via the fraud that has been committed at both the Federal Reserve level and that of the Central Appraisal District and School District level being local, is irrefutably fraudulent. We know where the fraud is. We've got the math. We've shown it. We've given it to the FBI, the DOJ, the SEC, the Attorney General, multiple states' attorney generals across the United States. The proof is irrefutable. Could it be that they're doing these things because they want to win the midterms? Well, okay. I'm going to tell you how to win the midterms. Real simple. Issue the magic words. Repeal property tax, all property tax, in favor of the uniform states sales tax. You issue those magic words, you will sweep the midterms. Keep poking at the fringes and you cause problems. The administration needs to be paying attention to this because at the very tail end of this video, we're going to come back and show you exactly what we did not want to happen. We warned was going to happen. Therefore, how to make housing more affordable? Well, the most simple, basic thing, get rid of the institutionalized systemic moral hazard, which is the property tax, which is a violation of the 16th Amendment. We've laid all this out. It's now sitting at the Supreme Court here in Texas. Point being, you get rid of that, then all of a sudden the debt to income ratio drops, not from 28, but down to 23 or 21, where it belongs based on the inflation that President Trump is rightfully complaining about, as is everybody else. The DTI drops 28 to 21, not 45 or 65 to 28. Get rid of the real estate tax in favor of the uniform states sales tax and return the balance sheet to mom and pop and all property owners so that the equity stripping of their mortgage stops and they own the land beneath their asset. That's how you do this. Issue the magic words and you win.
Let's move on to the property tax portion of this now. I'm going to show you guys what President Trump is saying he wants to do. I'm going to play a video clip before that, but before that, I wanted to say this in the offshoot that any politician is listening. I will stop everything I'm doing. I will stop everything I'm doing. I will possibly even go bankrupt to help you with this fight. If we can find someone that is really going to fight to abolish property taxes, and I'm speaking a little bit for you as well, Mitch, I will stop everything I'm doing and I will support you in every single way, because I know without a shadow of doubt how regressive property taxes really are and how helpful it would be to so many people across the country.
Now, the supposed justification for the property tax increases is that they're required to fund our public schools. But here's the math. Here's the actual hard facts. It turns out that you all, the taxpayers, are paying nearly 40% more per student today than you all did before the pandemic. Yet student enrollment has declined and educational achievement outcomes have fallen off of a cliff, not just in Ohio, but across the country. In our state, third grade reading proficiency is now down at 7% pre-pandemic versus post-pandemic. Eighth grade math outcomes are down by 9% pre-pandemic versus post-pandemic. History scores are down by 6 points. We now have more fourth graders in Ohio who can't read at the basic level that you require in fourth grade versus fourth graders who are proficient in reading for their grade level. And by the way, our public school teachers like Ms. Kinney, should actually be paid more than they are today, because even though the per student funding has gone up, the average teacher pay has actually gone down on an inflation adjusted basis. So the problem is not our teachers. It is the bureaucracy. And that is what we need to ultimately get in there and dismantle without fear.
Once again, what's circulating in the news, and he said that in 2025, but President Trump says he wants no more property taxes across the United States. Let me show you guys the statistics on why abolishing property taxes is so important. Here's data from a data provider called Property Radar. They don't even have everything, but this is showing you guys that they're roughly analyzing 156 million properties. Now that includes buildings, it's not just residential. Now of that amount, right now, okay, minimum, they don't even have all the data. There's 4.37 million homeowners or property owners that are currently delinquent on their property taxes, inheriting massive fees, making it even more difficult to catch up on the unjust burden of property taxes. 4.37 million people, and it adversely affects senior citizens that have their house paid off. Property taxes is so regressive because it creates a situation to where we can never escape the matrix. We can never escape the government. We can never really own the roof over our head. How is that not the most regressive tax in history? Comment below, haters. Tell me how that is not the most regressive tax. You see it on your screen. These people are suffering. We need to stop it. It is the root of all evil. And another root of all evil is massive egos. And because of massive egos, the politicians have failed us in every single way. When we have asked them and pleaded with them to come to the table, we have the math, uniform state sales tax, enact. We've reached out to politicians. They don't care about us. All they care about is using property taxes as propaganda to get elected. Literally, it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or Democrat. They have talking points to get elected. Property taxes is almost the number one talking point. They are using the things that hurt us the most to get elected. They get elected and they just join the party's flow. That's all they're doing. It's tyranny. It's sedition. It needs to stop before more people get hurt. Mitch, can you explain the debauchery here, the debt here? Can you explain the root of the problem? And can you explain why it was such a mistake to change the term life, liberty, and the pursuit of property to the pursuit of happiness? Happiness, property, property, happiness. Sir, take it away.
Pursuit of property is pursuit of capitalism. It's got nothing to do with happiness, right? Capitalism is what has supplied a roof over the head of virtually every person that's got a roof on the planet. It's capitalism that drives it. Socialism exists for the sole purpose to transfer your money into the pockets of socialists. And yeah, there are socialists on both sides of the aisle. We have to call it what it is in order to reframe the argument. With regard to what Vivek was saying, that comes into this whole topic. I'm not convinced he understands the depth of the problem. And that is the problem. So if this administration, which I believe they do, and Vivek really wanted to permanently fix affordability, the only approach is to drain the leverage and the fraud from the system. And in order to do that, you would require the GSEs, Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, to only buy and or guarantee mortgages with 20% plus down payments, 80% loan to value, or repeal all property tax in favor of the uniform state sales tax. That eliminates the fraudulent overvaluation and the overtaxation. You limit all low equity loans, no serial cash out refis. You simply take these things off the table. We're not, as a country, going to invest in this nonsense. Remember, the goal is to permanently fix affordability. And you bring prices to what the median household income can sustain. And that's a 40% devaluation of property values. Do you realize that in 5 years, property values across the United States are up 100%? So ask yourself this question: what happened in the last 5 years to drive my property values up 100%? The answer is nothing. It's fraud. Why was that fraud occurring? It occurred as a direct result of the school district bond fraud. They did not pay off their bonds. They rolled them out. They rolled the interest rates up. Then on almost an annual basis, they increased the demand for bonds. You're paying compound cumulative fraud on top of compound cumulative fraud, and it's non-ending. It's got nothing to do with the value of your property, zero. It has zero to do with the law, which requires uniform standards of professional appraisal practice, zero. It is pure fraud. It is a Ponzi scheme put upon the nation by virtue of the school districts and the central appraisal districts that are the co-conspirators in a criminal conspiracy to defraud. We have spelled all this out in excruciating detail. It's been delivered to the DOJ, the FBI, the SEC, the attorney generals. It's everywhere. Millions of views in the last 120 days alone, millions. People understand what's going on here. I'm not so sure that the politicians yet get it. And the same thing applies to the judges. And we're going to touch on that in a few minutes. The point of the matter is, Vivek is a smart guy. I'm not sure based on that speech that he understands the depth of the problem. The problem is institutionalized systemic moral hazard because they surround the wagons to protect the criminals, be it the central appraisal districts and the school districts. When they surround the wagons, the judges that support them, create the institutionalized systemic moral hazard. And that is what has driven your values up by 100% in 5 years. Just to get back to where we were 5 years ago is a 50% devaluation of property values. To get in the hunt is a 40% devaluation. The fraud has done this. Those who supported the fraud, transferring your money from your pocket and equity stripping off of your mortgage and your amortization into their pocket, those are socialists. And as I've said, socialism, President Trump, should be codified into the US Constitution as illegal. The answer to the question, President Trump, repeal all property tax in favor of the uniform state sales tax and knock the pins of the bowling alley down.
I will have no choice but to say that he is the best president of my lifetime, and really that I can remember. If he actually can do that, it's so important. And I want to make clear to the viewers, okay, mathematically clear to the viewers, if we abolish or repeal property taxes, it's going to create deflation. Prices will go down on essentially everything. This is actually going to adversely help the middle class, the lower class, the poor, renters, senior citizens. Really, the only people it's not going to help are millionaires on breaking point that want you to pay for their children's education. Maybe it's not going to help them, but probably it is going to help them. They're just not going to appreciate it, and they're going to blame all of the wrong people for the problem, which is what is happening in mainstream media. Anyone that says that abolishing property taxes is going to adversely hurt the poor, doesn't understand how property taxes work and doesn't understand the debauchery and fraud that's being created behind the scenes at the ISD level. The propaganda there is outrageous. Out of all of the things that I have fought as far as corruption, the most traumatic people that I've ever fought against debauchery is the ISD. It's the ISD because the evil people within the ISD, and that's not a lot, it could be 1, 2, 3 people, they understand how the game works and they understand that their bad intentions can be hidden behind a child. That's what they're doing. Now, let's go into the advocacy. And before we go into the advocacy, let's listen to this video.
The IRS called criminal investigations. And these men and women, they are cool cats. They can take apart a balance sheet and they can knock down a door and arrest someone. Like they go out on patrols, they can make arrests. It's this very interesting hybrid force, about 2,500 of them, and they led the charge here. So it was IRS CIs who uncovered the initial fraud and the prosecutions. So it's with that group, with other groups at IRS, and with the powers of the Treasury to track where the money came from, where it's going. We saw this very unsettling news yesterday that many people involved here with the administration of these programs have tried to go back and they recreate documents, change documents, and we're not going to have that. We are going to hold people accountable. We're going to press this to the full extent possible. And like I said, I think that this may just be, it's a cold day outside, so this could be the tip of the iceberg here in Minnesota, but it's probably may not be as prevalent, but the dollars may be bigger and larger in other states. And just to put this in perspective for American taxpayers, for American families, the GAO, the General Accounting Office, believes that there is somewhere between 300 and 600 billion of annual fraud, roughly 10% of government spending that disappears due to fraud. If we can recapture that, that is 1 to 2% of GDP.
So quite frankly, when we eliminate the fraud, the sales tax goes even lower. The problem is the bond debt. We need essentially a debt jubilee. But he made some really good points that I hope you guys are starting to understand. Most of our tax money, even if it's property tax, it goes to fraud. You eliminate the fraud, you shut down the buildings, the CADs, the ARBs. You don't even need that much money to go towards the schools and to go towards the municipalities. But regardless, you guys can come back here. We've already put our money where our mouth is. This is my website. You go to the Abolish property tax section, and I have the bill right here. So all these politicians that are running, using our names, acting like we support them, we don't support anyone. We'll tell you, and we will follow anyone, and it's probably going to be nobody, that will actually fight, that we believe that is proven to us, the people that before they're elected, that they will prove to us that they will fight. All these politicians wants to do is like, just trust me. Just trust me. I need to get elected first. Anyone that says they need to get elected first doesn't have the math or the answers or the plan. All they're doing is the same old game, different face. But if you guys want to come back here, it's here. Here's the people's bill. And if you're a politician, you're not 100% sure what's going on, I made a one-page talking point for you. And to anyone in the public, you can go to the one-page talking points to abolish property taxes, and it's going to explain in one page why this is so important. And when you're done there, you can also go to Mitch's website, mockingbirdproperties.com/DCAD. You go right down here. Here's the link to the proposed bill for Texas. Use this, you guys, because the fact that you're not using it and you're not listening is creating radicalized citizens that are taking the law into their hands. I myself was assaulted by the ARB chairman of my central appraisal district. The DA gave me a letter yesterday and said, we're not going to do anything else. We don't have jurisdiction. They are allowing criminals to continue to get away with crimes. It's debauchery. Now, yesterday, guys, Abbott sends this out. This is what we've been trying to stop. It's not working because it takes more than just us trying to stop it. It takes the politicians to meet us at least, not even halfway. Just stick your hand out and we'll help ourselves up. We don't even need, just call the meeting. Call the meeting. But this is what happened, guys. Governor Abbott announces a $30,000 reward for information on Commissioner Betancourt's shooting. Greg Abbott today announced that the Office of Governor Public Safety Office is offering a reward up to $30,000 for information leading to the arrest of this individual. Betancourt was found deceased on December 27, 2025, and on the following day, the McAllen Police Department issued a warrant and arrest. Now, Betancourt was the vice chairman of the Hidalgo County Appraisal District Board of Directors. We got bad problems in the Central Appraisal District because they're not adhering to the law, federal, state, or the Constitution. They are acting like a bunch of thugs. And more than likely, and we're speculating, that's what happened here. Now, he was appointed by Greg Abbott as well to serve on the Texas Facility Commissions. In my opinion, and a lot of people don't share this opinion, there's still enough time for us as citizens to unite, stand up, and I still believe that there are enough, hopefully, politicians, whether they just want the clout or not, that will be forced to work with us as citizens and to work out a plan to abolish property taxes. We keep talking about abolishing property taxes, and it took me a year and a half to understand this. I had to learn for myself, and I had to believe it in myself. And I'm telling you right now, I believe with all my heart and with all my soul that the greatest thing that the current president can do for the citizens of the United States is repeal and abolish property taxes. But in the meantime, we need people to stand up. We need people to learn. We need people to get body cams to go to their city council meetings, to their board meetings. We need all of the support we can possibly get from the people. I need you guys to go to our websites, follow along, join the Substack, learn what's going on. But Mitch Vexler, can you explain why it is so important now more than ever for the politicians to understand what we're saying, to articulate the problem, because the people are suffering at a point to where they are taking radicalized, violent actions?
We have been consistently right, and I wish that that was not the case, because the reality is we stated, and I've stated multiple times in writing and multiple times on these videos, that there was a high probability of this type of event occurring. This is just horrific. I mean, there's no other way to look at it. It occurred. Therefore, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Attorney General Paxton, members of the Texas Supreme Court, now, maybe you will do something about the institutionalized systemic moral hazard. It is the system that has created the theft of property taxes. I would strongly suggest you get the tax files from Hidalgo, because multiple people have reached out to me about what is going on there. And it is the same problem that is replicating itself across the nation. Use the math that I set forward in those documents. And if you don't understand it, I'm more than happy to walk you through cell by cell on the spreadsheets. I'll show you the math. I'll tie the US Constitution straight into the USPAP, Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice. You don't have to do the heavy lifting. I've already done it. I'm prepared to help. Whatever you need, you've got. Myself, my accountant, whatever it is you need, done. The question is for you politicians and judges. Are you going to get involved and stop the fraud, knock the fraud out of the system that has been festering at least since the year 2000? No matter how you look at it, this was a lethal shot that should never have occurred. Regardless of what the outcome of why it occurred, it should never have happened. Point being, to those people that I mentioned, you want to fix the problem? Look in the mirror. The problem is irrefutable. You have the knowledge and the power to prevent. I've stated multiple times that nobody in their right mind would want to see the War of 1776, taxation without representation, replay history. You're in a position to stop it. This is the reason why I've been hammering on these documents with all these criminal complaints. I knew this was coming. That's the math. That's the probability. You, the politicians, choose to ignore it and or don't understand it, but we're telling you what the problem is and you can't refute it. It ends with you. You have the ability. Repeal all property tax in favor of the uniform states sales tax. You stop the institutionalized systemic moral hazard, and you return the balance sheet to mom and pop. And you allow people on your brand new food triangle to be able to afford the food that is on that triangle. These things are all connected. If the median household income doesn't exist to pay the mortgage, to buy the food, to put medicine in some child, that's your problem. You created this. You allowed this to fester. Now it's ended in the ultimate problem. Do not let this keep going. You want to win the midterms? Issue the magic words. Repeal all property tax in favor of the uniform states sales tax. Follow through and you will win.
Well said, Mitch. I almost ended the video there, forgetting that you made a new piece from the advocacy today, January 9, 2026. You guys can get a copy of this from his website. You can get a copy from Substack. You can get a copy of this multiple places. But Mitch, Vexler, can you please summarize this document and tell us what we're looking at?
The timing of this was very coincidental in that it was truly earmarked for the politicians. I had spoken with somebody yesterday that said, it's overwhelming. And from time to time, I back up and I say, yeah, it's overwhelming. Let me see if I can't short circuit it. And then this issue came up in Hidalgo, and then I created this document immediately. So what I'm doing here is I'm walking just in a handful of pages, politicians and mom and pop who have not experienced what it is we've put together at mockingbirdproperties.com/DCAD. I'm giving you a roadmap. All you have to do is click on the links, watch a couple of videos, look at the PDFs, and you'll understand where this is going. The amicus brief, which is in here as a link, is a little deep, but that amicus brief is at the Supreme Court of Texas as we speak. It's got charts and graphs that prove the criminality. That's what this document is. There's no reason for me to walk everybody through every single line. Just understand that this is the fast way for any politician anywhere in the United States to get up to speed very quickly.
And this document is 7 pages. Again, you can go to our Substack, you can go to his website, it will be there. These are clickable links. Again, use the blueprint, use the map. That's why we're doing this. We don't want people to get hurt. It's actually the opposite. We don't even want to fight. I know I don't want to fight. We get pulled into these fights because no one else is fighting. So hopefully we're showing you guys how to do that. This document is there. Other than that, guys, this is your Saturday video. Comment below, share the video. It's very, very important. It helps out the video and it helps out the channel a lot when you comment and when you share. But let us know whether or not you understand what's going on in regards to property taxes, and let us know whether or not you agree with us as well on the mortgage-backed securities, on the institutional investors. Either way, we really appreciate you guys. And if you're out there just trying to invest in your life, trying to figure things out, you guys already know we wish you luck. We're trying to help. We have the resources, and we hope you win.